Humans built cities, cured diseases, and even walked on the moon. But our greatest enemies were never other humans at all. They were tiny. Some weigh less than a paperclip. Together, they've killed more people than every war in history combined. These are 8 animals that wrecked human civilization through plague, famine, ruin, and one disaster we caused entirely ourselves. The deadliest animal in human history isn't the shark, the lion, or the snake. It weighs less than a paperclip. Mosquitoes kill between 700,000 and 1 million people every year. Snakes, the runner-up, kill around 100,000. They don't kill directly. Only females bite, needing blood for eggs, and they inject whatever parasite the last victim carried. Guinness officially certified the mosquito as the deadliest animal on Earth. The most dangerous thing in your whole life is barely visible. The worst is malaria. In 2023 alone, it caused 263 million cases and roughly 600,000 deaths, mostly children. Malaria shaped history. 7 American presidents caught it. America feared it so much the CDC was literally created to fight it. You've heard mosquitoes killed half of everyone who ever lived. That figure is popular, but researchers say it's unlikely to be true. We fight with nets and insecticide. They evolve resistance and now feed earlier and outdoors to dodge the nets entirely. You've always been told that rats caused the Black Death, but new research suggests the rat may actually have been framed. The story you know? Rats carried infected fleas. The fleas bit humans, and Yersinia pestis killed roughly 25 million Europeans. But modeling of 9 historical outbreaks found human fleas and body lice fit the death patterns better than rats did. The plague spread too fast for rats. And the mass rat die-offs seen in later pandemics are missing from Black Death records. Plague has killed over 200 million people across 2,000 years. The Black Death alone erased up to half of Europe. It's still debated, and some researchers think rat fleas did most of it. The rat isn't innocent, just heavily overblamed. And rats earned their reputation elsewhere. They stowed away on every ship we built, eating our food across the entire world. They've wiped out at least 1,000 island bird species. Guilty of plenty, just maybe not the crime we convicted them for. The animal that may have killed more humans than every war in history is smaller than a single grain of rice. It's the flea, just 2 millimeters long and completely wingless. And what the plague does to its body is genuinely horrifying. Plague bacteria multiply inside until they physically block the flea's gut. It cannot digest anything, so it starves while feeding constantly. So it bites again and again, vomiting bacteria into every wound. Starvation turns the flea into a machine that can't stop infecting. The bacteria travel to a lymph node in your armpit, groin, or neck, swelling it into a dark lump called a bubo. That swollen lump is what gives bubonic plague its name. Untreated, it killed the majority of people it touched, within days. Human fleas live on us, in our clothes and bedding. In crowded medieval cities, plague leapt straight from person to person. Plague never left. It still appears in Madagascar, New Mexico, and Arizona. But antibiotics now stop it in its tracks. A single square kilometer of locust swarm eats as much food in one day as 35,000 human beings. And swarms get far bigger than that. In 2020, a single swarm in Kenya held roughly 20 billion locusts. It covered 2,400 square kilometers. That is one single swarm of insects roughly the size of Luxembourg. They fly 150 kilometers a day, stripping every plant down to bare stems, then move on. Nothing survives. Alone, a desert locust is just a harmless grasshopper the size of a paperclip. It doesn't swarm. It threatens absolutely nobody. But crowding changes them. They switch behavior, change color, and swarm, turning from solitary insects into a single devouring cloud. A new generation emerges every 8 weeks. That's exponential. A small outbreak becomes a continental plague in a single season. That 2020 plague left 13 million people in severe food insecurity, with 20 million more on the edge of crisis. There's a fly that may be the reason an entire continent's history went differently. And it barely harms humans at all. The tsetse fly exists only in Africa. It carries a parasite that's harmful to people, but absolutely lethal to livestock. Remember how the ox and plough created farming surplus, and surplus created cities? Where the tsetse lived, that was impossible. Cattle and horses simply died. Explorers noticed the fly barely harmed them, while killing every animal they traveled with. A 2015 study in the American Economic Review mapped it. Groups in tsetse-suitable areas used the plough and domesticated animals far less. They were also less politically centralized, with lower population density. And crucially, that pattern doesn't appear in tropics outside Africa. It's geography, not people. A single insect made the ox, civilization's engine, nearly impossible to keep alive across enormous regions. Its estimated economic cost still runs around $4 billion a year. One fly quietly bending the history of a continent. Something could be eating the building you are sitting inside right now, silently, and you might not notice it for years. Termites eat cellulose, which is wood, and they do it from the inside out, leaving the outer surface perfectly intact. A single Formosan termite colony in the right warm climate can seriously damage an entire house in under 6 months. By the time you can actually see any damage, the structure is already hollow. Tap the wall and it simply crumbles. Termites cause over $40 billion in damage worldwide every year and hit roughly 600,000 American homes annually. But here's the fair twist. Of roughly 3,100 termite species, only 183 are actually pests. The rest are essential. They're decomposers and ecosystem engineers, recycling dead wood and leaves across the world's tropical forests. So the villain isn't the termite, it's the handful of species that worked out our cities are made entirely of food. In 1859, one man released 24 rabbits in Australia for hunting. Within 90 years, there were 600 million. His name was Thomas Austin. He reasoned that a few rabbits could do little harm and might feel a bit like home. Within 3 years, there were thousands. By 1865, he boasted of killing 20,000 on his land alone. More had escaped. They spread at 100 kilometers a year. It's the fastest colonization of a landmass by an introduced mammal ever recorded. They stripped vegetation, eroded the soil, and pushed native species like the bilby toward extinction across an entire continent. Here's the eerie part. Rabbits reached Australia in 1788 and roughly 90 times after. None of those populations ever exploded. DNA proved nearly every Australian rabbit descends from Austin's 24. His were wild-caught, genetically tough enough to conquer a continent. Australia built a rabbit-proof fence over 1,000 kilometers long. The rabbits breached it before it was even finished. Australia had a beetle problem, so they imported 100 toads to fix it. It became a far bigger disaster. In 1935, beetles were destroying Queensland's sugarcane. Scientists imported 101 cane toads from Hawaii to eat them. They bred them, then released tens of thousands into the fields. No environmental study was carried out, none at all. And they'd never checked whether cane toads would even eat cane beetles. They didn't. Sugar production never meaningfully improved. The reason is almost funny. Adult beetles live high up the cane stalks. The larvae live underground. Toads could reach neither. Worse, the toads ate the ants that preyed on beetles, poisoned the lizards, and boosted rodents that eat toads safely. So the cure may have made the problem worse, and the toads secrete a toxin that kills almost anything biting them. Today there are around 200 million. By 1950, Australia had officially declared its own solution an invasive pest. A mosquito that outkilled every war. A flea that emptied Europe. A fly that held back a continent. A rabbit that ate one. We beat the lion and the wolf. What we couldn't beat was the things too small to notice or too cute to fear. If this changed how you see the pests around you, subscribe, and tell me which one shocked you most in the comments.